Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thank you so much for being here. Tuesday, March 11th. Good morning to all y'all Jaguars fans. Day 2 of free agency is upon us, basically, right? Day 2 of the legal tampering period. This legal tampering period goes on till Wednesday at 4 p.m. Then teams can officially sign players, but all these deals are agreed to, terms agreed upon between teams and players. So, look, Jacksonville Jaguars, they made a bevy of signings yesterday, which comes as no surprise after what they did last week, cutting a lot of players, trading players, seeing players retire, right? On the surface, this was a very workmanlike free agency day one for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Even though the Jaguars were the third biggest spenders in total, like total money given out, the biggest single deal was a $13.5 million per year contract over 3 years to Patrick Mekari. There's not much long-term impact, if any, from these signings, and the Jaguars should still have plenty of room to work with from a cap standpoint. I think that the average annual value combined of all these players so far is about $50 million, give or take a little bit. And the way the Jaguars have written contracts, the average annual value is usually the year one cap hit, is usually 40% of the average annual value. So that would put the Jaguars around $20 million in cap spent. They had over $60 million entering the day. And the new regime, they might write contracts a little bit differently. We don't know. Maybe it's 50% of the average annual value. But even if that's the case, you're still looking at the Jaguars having a lot of cap space remaining. So I just wanted to throw that out there, let y'all know that they might not be done with making moves. They could certainly have another swing left in them. And the three contracts that I don't know the numbers on are Long, Munt, and Adoga. And I imagine all of those are very minimal cap hits. I would be surprised if their cap hits are more than like $1 million, $1.5 million. So not going to be much of an impact there. Now we are going to grade each signing and grade the day one signings as a whole so far. We're going to talk about this in a fair amount of depth. So I'm excited to get into it. Really appreciate y'all supporting the channel. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. So, Patrick Mekari, he's the highest paid player for the Jaguars of this group, $13.5 million per year over 3 years. I give this one a B-, and Mekari does absolutely fill a need. He also has a ton of versatility. He's played every position for the Baltimore Ravens. He is right in that mid-20s age range where you feel good about the future there, 27 years old. He's a decent starter on the offensive line, no matter where he's played. I don't think he's a great starter. I don't think he's like a Pro Bowl caliber type of player, but he's going to get the job done for you a lot more often than not. So Patrick Mekari, it's a B-. The Jaguars needed interior offensive line help with Brandon Sheriff, likely moving on, obviously, in free agency, and then Mitch Morse retiring. I view Mekari probably as the starting right guard at this point, the way we're looking at things. That's how I think he slots in there. So he's a starter. He's a good player, comes from a good organization. He's obviously a hard worker, having been an undrafted free agent and having the type of career that he's having. So this is somebody that I think the Jaguars feel strongly about bringing him in. And again, it's a B- for me. Jordan Lewis is a B for me. There's no question he's a very good football player. High character, intangibly rich type of guy, as James Gladstone would say. But Jordan Lewis, he does have experience playing outside. He does have a ton of experience playing in the nickel. He's been a good, effective football player for the Cowboys his entire career, whether he was playing outside or playing in the nickel. Now, the way I'm guessing the Jaguars are viewing this is they have Tyson Campbell, who will be an outside starting corner for them. Jordan Lewis and Jarian Jones both have experience playing outside. They also both have a lot of experience playing inside. I think they view that group as having three starters: Tyson Campbell, Jordan Lewis, Jarian Jones, right? Three starting level players. So to me, whether it's Jordan Lewis playing in the nickel or Jarian Jones playing outside, or vice versa, the Jaguars feel like they have three starters. If they had to go play football today, they have three starters. And again, I think Jordan Lewis is a very good player. So that's a solid B for me. Dami Brown. And Jordan Lewis was a 3-year deal, $30 million total, $10 million a year. Not a big money deal by any stretch of the imagination. Dami Brown. I give this one a B as well. Now, Dami Brown hasn't put up crazy numbers throughout his career, but the way he was utilized in Washington last year, I think is a perfect marriage for what Liam Cohen wants to do offensively. You saw Liam Cohen as the Buccaneers offensive coordinator. Heavy, heavy, heavy screen game. Dami Brown was a screen merchant for the Washington Commanders last year. He's 25 years old, 6 foot, 195 pounds, ran a 4.45 40-yard dash at the combine. To me, he runs a lot faster than that on the football field. And that's not saying 4.45 is slow. 4.45 is very fast, but I think he looks more like a guy that's running right at 4.4 or even in the 4.3s quite often. And you look at last year, 78% catch rate. A lot of that had to do with the fact that a lot of those were screens, right? He was targeted 56 times, 44 receptions. His drop rate for his career is fairly low, and his yak per reception was 7.3 yards per catch. A lot of screens, right? Did not drop the football very often. Again, a lot of screens. And he broke a lot of tackles, right? 13 forced missed tackles last year on 44 catches. You get him the ball quickly and he picks up little chunks of yardage for you. It's pretty simple. And then he's also got that vertical speed. You've seen him win on 9 routes down the field, stack the defender, get behind them, and execute at the catch point. And then I've also seen, I watched every target last year. He executes fairly well on digs and on comebacks. I think that the Jaguars, with this 1-year, $10 million deal, said, Dami Brown, go prove to us that you can be a starter for us in this system. We think you can based on the skill set we've seen, but we want to bring you in, give you a prove-it deal, and see if you can be a starter for us here. And I think right now he would project as the second highest targeted receiver on the team behind Brian Thomas Jr. And when you think about this Jaguars pass game, it is going to revolve around Brian Thomas Jr. Everything is going to work around what Brian Thomas Jr. can bring them. They're going to heavily feature him. Can Dami Brown complement that with his speed, with his ability to execute in the screen game at an extremely high level? Yes, absolutely. So, again, that's a B signing for me. It has zero long-term impact on the cap. It's a player who I think is ascending, a player who has a skill set that fits what Liam Cohen wants to do. That's a solid B. Now, the Eric Murray contract, which is 3 years, $22.5 million, so like $7.5 a year. To me, that's a C. This is a guy, a safety, who is versatile. Last year, I mean, he lined up almost equally in the box, at free safety, and at nickel. So a lot of versatility for what he can bring to your defense from a safety perspective. I don't think he is like a plus starter in this league, but I think he is a player that you're fine with having on the field. The Houston Texans, he was part of a very good defense last year, and he played a lot of snaps, and he made a lot of plays. This is a guy that had 8 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, a lot of tackles, a lot of stops. I mean, again, I don't think he's a great player, but I think if you need him on the field, he can get the job done for you more often than not. And again, with 961 defensive reps last year, he was mostly very effective for the Houston Texans. So you like to see that. And we'll study more about him. All these guys. I'm not as familiar with Eric Murray as the rest of the guys we've talked about so far. I can say the same thing about Robert Hainsey, who I'm also giving a C grade to. I think essentially these two players are brought in, and right now they would be starters for the Jaguars, Eric Murray and Robert Hainsey. Robert Hainsey is the center from the Buccaneers, and so they're filling a need. But I don't know that they prevent you from making further moves at the position, potentially in the draft, to try to upgrade things. And Robert Hainsey was the Bucs starting center that was replaced by their first round pick last year, the out of Duke, Graham Barton. Graham Barton, who was a left tackle at Duke, was a center during his freshman year, but played center for the Bucs last year. Really good young player. Robert Hainsey was replaced by him last year, but Hainsey did have to go in and start for a game and did a decent job, and he's somebody that Liam Cohen has familiarity with. I just don't think he's a very high-level player overall. I think he's all right. I think if you have to start him, you can live with that, but not somebody who's like elevating the roster in a big way. But he is familiar with what the Jaguars want to do, and I think that counts for something. The two tight ends, I both gave B. Johnny Munt and Hunter Long, they both have familiarity with the coaching staff and the front office. They're both blocking tight ends, and this is an offense that wants guys that can block in space and block on the line of scrimmage, and both Johnny Munt and Hunter Long do that at an extremely effective level. So these are role players, and they will know exactly how to execute their role to a T. Johnny Munt and Hunter Long. And so I value that. And neither of them is asked to be a starter. Brenton Strange is the starting tight end right now. So I like both of those moves a good bit. Nick Mullins, backup quarterback. The Jaguars had a need for a backup quarterback. Mac Jones is a free agent. CJ Beathard has had a lot of struggles staying healthy lately. So Nick Mullins is the Jaguars' backup quarterback, and he has familiarity with this group with Grant Udinski. He was with Grant Udinski the last 3 years. I think that's fine as a backup quarterback, right? You hope you don't ever have to see him, but he's going to come in and he's going to be a positive part of that room. And then you've also got Chuma Edoga, who I gave a C-. He's a backup offensive lineman that's going to compete for the back of the roster. I don't think he's a great player. Will he be able, are they going to cut Javon Foster potentially? He's a tackle. Edoga is. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with bringing in somebody like that at all. Again, I think it's going to be extremely low money. I don't think it's very impactful overall. But, just not somebody who you really want to see in the starting lineup. He has entered the starting lineup a lot for the Cowboys the last few years, but those are in emergency situations. Overall, I'm giving the Jaguars, on paper, objectively, a C+ for this effort. Again, no long-term money at all with this group. You filled holes. I think you have 3 quality starting players in Patrick Mekari, Dami Brown, and Dami Brown will be a top 3 wide receiver on this team this year, and Jordan Lewis. I think you have 2 replacement level starters in Robert Hainsey and Eric Murray, and then you have guys that can fill roles. Again, backup quarterback, blocking tight ends, backup tackle. So overall, it's a C+. I like that they didn't spend too much into the future. I like Mekari and Lewis and Dami Brown a lot. The rest of the moves, I think, make sense. I really like Munt and Long as well as those blocking tight ends. The rest of the moves make sense. They're gap-filling moves. They're adding glue guys, players they feel can contribute in the short term while they build out long-term through the draft. They have 21 picks over the next 2 years. I still would not be surprised if you see a big swing. In my notes here, I had Javon Holland, but he just signed with the Giants, about $15 million per year for 3 years. That's a deal I would have been in on. I think Justin Reed is still available, if I'm not mistaken there. Type his name into Twitter and make sure he hasn't signed somewhere. But Justin Reed is a high-quality safety from the Kansas City Chiefs. Did he sign? Yeah, I think he's still out there. So I would be very much in on Justin Reed, safety from the Kansas City Chiefs. Also used to play for the Houston Texans. Really, the one I expect to see some smoke about is Cooper Kupp, wide receiver. I would be surprised if there wasn't interest from both sides, but we'll see. Again, if these players can simply just execute the assignments more consistently than you have seen from some of these positions that they're addressing, with better coaching, more innovative and communicative coaches, this team will play better football. There were times last year where it wasn't about the talent on the field. It was about players in the secondary, receivers, just not making the plays that were there to be made. Like, you don't have to elevate above the X's and O's. If you can just do what the X's and O's require of you, the Jaguars would have been in a lot better shape last year. And I think, they think, with these players, they will be able to achieve that at a higher level. And I think they're probably right. All these players have been decent to good players on the field. I do want to make it clear, though, I gave him a C+. This is not what I would have done. Drew Dahlman would be here. I think he got $14 million per year. He would be here at that number. I would have given him more. Javon Holland would be here. Got like 15 something per year. He'd be here at that number. Carlton Davis would be here. Those are the ones that I feel like the Jaguars really could have done well with. But I'm going to give James Gladstone, Liam Cohen, Tony Baselli, I'm going to give these guys room to work. I'm not going to slam what they have done. I'm going to let the whole process play out and see the results before really saying anything negative about what they're doing. Because I think anytime you have a new regime, they need to have the benefit of the doubt, especially when you see the past results, what James Gladstone comes from, what Liam Cohen has done. I'm going to give them room to work, right? And even though maybe they're doing things differently than what I think they should, let's see how it plays out. I do think, based on the signings we've seen so far and the interest we've seen so far, it's still looking like interior defensive line is highly likely in the first round. That would be Mason Graham. But they could, continue to address offensive line. Will Campbell would not shock me, right? But I would still predict Mason Graham right now at 5 overall for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. Drop those grades in the comment section below. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.